Hi everybody, it's Carla from Casey Creates, and I'm going to do a demo on how to make your own basic hand building tools for clay. So I'm sorry you can't see me, but the whole purpose is for you to see the actual tools. So I'm here, I promise. Hi. The first tool that is very simple to make is a sponge. If you can't go out and buy one of the pre-made sponges for working with clay, just simply go get a bag of the rectangle little sponges, and if you can see, I just laid my actual sponge on top and cut the shape of a bean or a kidney out. And there you have it. Now if you're working with a group and you need several sponges, you could cut this into thirds, and that'd be sufficient of a size for working with your clay. So there is a sponge that you can create. That's an important hand building tool. So stick that in there. The other tool that you use a lot when you're working with clay is a needle tool. Let me hold this up. And the needle tool has a very sharp metal tip. For projects that require a needle tool and you may not have one, you can go out and just grab a bag of the little skewers that they use for kebabs, and those will work just fine. Or the little stick that comes at the end of, that comes with a corn dog on it, it has a very sharp tip as well. Now, all of the tools that I'm showing you that you can create on your own, they're not going to last forever, but they'll get you through in a pinch. Say you can't find a tool, or you want to make a project with a group of children or someone that may not need the tools on a regular basis. They will work just fine. So hand building also tends to need a knife for mitering edges or making angled cuts, and this is a hand building knife that I own, but I also learned that you can do the same nice cuts with just a plastic paring knife, and you can get a group of these 3 or 4 for $1 at the dollar store. So those work well. If for some reason you can't get your hands on one of those, a wooden knife often comes in the hand building kits that you get for clay, and the wooden knife looks like this and typically has a rounded end. So I make a makeshift one with a popsicle stick because you can cut an angle, and then it also has the rounded end. Now I do think a wider popsicle stick might work better, like a tongue depressor, or even one that you find on the end of an ice cream. That's from a Magnum bar. But if you want to make your own, you just cut at an angle, just like that. And if you can see, they both have a nice angle. Let me move my finger out of the way. So it'll serve well as a wooden knife. So there's your wooden knife. Scoring tools are very important for hand building, especially because you have to score and scratch the surface of the clay. This is one that has little metal wires at the end that scratch. They're kind of flexible like a broom. But if you don't have one of those, my sister taught me this cool trick. You just get a pack of those cheap plastic combs, and you can cut them into whatever size scoring tool you want. If you want to cover a lot of surface with score marks, then keep it large, and if you don't, you can keep it small, and you can cut a standard size comb into a good 3, 4, even maybe 5 pieces for a group. People think these are like a little treasure. I don't know. They're fun to know you can just grab and score. So that's a nice, quick handmade scoring tool. Now, if you want to make what I can call a loop tool, and this is something you can use for carving, you take a bobby pin, and we make these a lot when we're carving our pumpkins during Halloween time. So you just open the bobby pin, and a pack of 10 pencils and a pack of bobby pins, and you can have enough for 10 people, and some strong, sturdy tape. I prefer duct tape. Now, of course, this is taking me longer than I planned, but bear with me here. So I'm going to squeeze the bobby pin onto the end. It might take 2 people to do this. Team effort. And then you're just going to wrap the duct tape around the end of the pencil or dowel or whatever you choose to use for the handle. And just squeeze it on really tight. And there's the tip for my loop tool. If you want to bend it into more of a true loop or circle, you can do that, but this shape will work fine for carving into like leather hard clay or making texture. So there's my homemade loop tool. Rolling pins are also very important when you're creating hand-built projects, and rolling pins can be hard to come by when you're working in a large group. So what I've got here is a tube that's a pretty sturdy one. Now this is not your flimsy paper towel or toilet paper tube. I think parchment paper came on this. But sometimes in those wraps like foil and plastic, the tube can be a little bit sturdier. So this one's more durable, and all I did was take a serrated knife out of my kitchen drawer, and I cut it to the size I wanted. And that will serve well as a rolling pin. Now it won't last forever because once it gets wet the cardboard will start to peel, but if you want to have it last for a few projects at least, get plastic tape and just cover it, and then it'll be a little more water resistant and it'll last for a few more projects. So that works well as a rolling pin. Another handmade tool that I find works great is if you don't have a metal rib, which is what we use for compressing clay and smoothing the surface of clay, you can create your own with a piece of plastic. And where I get my plastic is just from the lid of like a yogurt container or a Cool Whip container. And I already cut one out so you can see that, but you just place your rib on here, and if you don't have one to trace, you can just see the actual shape is sort of a half circle, or a half oval actually, with a straight flat edge. And you just trace it and cut it out, and it'll work really well. It's nice and flexible, just like a metal rib. If you have pinking shears, the ones that have that make the zigzag cut, you can also cut one out and make a serrated edge metal rib, plastic rib for adding texture or for scoring. So the other tool that you can make is a plastic rib. And I think the last tool that I want to show you that you can create at home is a wire tool. Now this is a string. I made it with embroidery floss, and there's the embroidery floss. And then I decided I could make handles. I have tons of glue sticks everywhere in my house, and this is an older one. You can already tell it's yellowing. So I just took one of the mini glue sticks, cut it in half, and then I cut a groove in the middle. Now don't press too hard because you don't want to cut it again all the way in half. But I just cut enough of a groove so that I could put string around it. Let me show you this. So you're going to pull a good 18 inches of the floss, and then you're just going to wrap it around where you put the groove in the middle of the glue stick. I don't know, wrap it 3 or 4 times just so it's settled in there, and then tie it off 2 or 3 times. Just knot it so that it won't come apart. And of course it's being a little stubborn, but if you do that on each end, I won't do it on this one again, but then you'll have a decent string for cutting through clay. If you're just working with children, the string will be fine. It's strong and it shouldn't break. If you want to make it with wire though, you can get floral wire really cheap and make several wires. And then if people collect found objects and you know of it, you can get things like old spools that thread was on And this is a slightly heavier gauge wire, just because I wanted it to show up, but you can attach it to the end of an old thread spool, and that will serve as a handle, and then you would just slice with the wire. So that's a way of making your own wire or string tool. So those are some basic clay tools that you can create right at home. And if you know you're going to do a project with several children or people and you want to start collecting the tools, one of the days that they come, they could actually create their own clay tools. If you just come with the supplies, they can take their popsicle sticks, for instance, outside on concrete and just sand them, and they'll sand nicely into a point. You might have to supervise that, but basically they could make their own wooden knife. So we'll recap. This was the metal rib or plastic rib that we made to mimic the metal rib. And then I wanted to show you the difference between the crafter's knife and just a little simple metal paring knife. And then we have the sponge that we cut out of just a simple kitchen sponge. I have what we used in place of a needle tool, which was a corn dog stick with a point on the end, or a wooden skewer that you make for kebabs. That's for your needle tool. And then your wooden knife again, cut at an angle. Works well for wooden knife. And then the loop tool that I made with the bobby pin and duct tape. And there's my string tool again. So these are nice, simple projects that you can make to create your own clay tools. I forgot to show you the little piece of comb for scoring. And they will work well for several projects. So that's my demo, and I hope you'll give it a try. Have a great day.